Okay.
Yes, I believe we
Okay.
should dive in
Good
it.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Sneha Jadhav, and you are listening to Weekly Wednesdays. Um, and I'm Sneha Jadhav. I am a product manager here, working in the P2P space, IoT P2P space. Currently working for Rockwell Automation in their edge management products and supporting the edge management products. So today we have the pleasure of inviting Sourav Rout to our WeeklyWed session, and we are going to be talking about Industry 5.0. Saurav is a thought leader in the digital transformation space, been in the industry for, he would introduce himself, but for a long time. And I have gone back and looked at his profile and read through his posts, and there's some really, really great information and thought pieces out there. So, Saurabh, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I'm absolutely excited about our discussion today. So, for everyone today, the format of our session today is going to be a discussions format. We are going to talk through a couple of topics on Industry 5.0 and see where the questions come in and take the discussion as per everyone's interest and uh, still pertaining to Industry 5.0. So if you have questions, please type in. If you want to introduce yourself, please type in the chat. Introduce yourself. If you have questions, type it in, and I'll pick the questions as we go through the discussion. So with that, I will hand it over to Saurabh to give us a quick introduction, and then we'll dive
Yeah.
Sneha, do you want to tell people we are recording? So if they don't want to be on air, they should go offline.
in. Saurabh?
Yeah. So, Sudha just asked if it's okay that we inform the audience that we are recording this live at the moment. So, if anybody is not okay with that, they are,
Oh,
yeah,
thank
they
you.
can. Yeah.
Yes. If you're not okay, please get off. Please switch off the camera. And if you have questions, please type in chat. Okay. Cool.
Perfect. No, thank you,
So thank you
Sudha.
for joining.
Thank you, Sudha. Yeah.
And do you want to introduce yourself? And then we can
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. So hello to everyone on the call here. I'm Sourav Rout. I'm based in Belgium, and at the moment I'm in the pharma sector. So with a global pharma company called UCB Biopharma. And why I say that, because my first foray into the pharma sector, by the way, started just at the crux of COVID around 3 years back. All my career I've been in telecoms, and that's where I got introduced to digital transformation and strategic innovation. So I call it DDT. So digital data and technology is what I am very much interested about. It's my motivation, and I love to share. If there's anything I could, and of course, get to know your thoughts and perceptions on how technology is evolving. Now, I've been in this whole DDT space for almost 15 years now, and I presume I'll be there for the next couple of years as well. So with that, it's a great topic we have today, and of course, Asneha will guide us through that as we go ahead. But
Yeah,
yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
same here, Zara.
Thank
Pleasure to meet you and pleasure to have you today.
you.
So let's dive in. Let's start. Let's go and start talking about Industry 5.0. Do you want to give us a brief on what it is? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so before we actually go into Industry 5.0, it's good to understand briefly about what Industry 4.0 was, because then we can kind of get the continuum from the previous evolution. So now Industry 4, as we understand, was primarily looking at cyber physical ecosystems, so connected ecosystems. How could IoT and AI and the likes come together to create that personalization, if you could call, and all that gave rise to a lot of productivity, to a lot of efficiency on the shop floors, especially around manufacturing. That's where Industry 4 was primarily linked to. And then in all that, what really happened was, because we were focusing so much on technologies, IoT, AI, robotics, etc., that somewhere down the line we perhaps didn't put too much focus on the most important aspect of digital transformation, the people, right? And there always used to be so much, discussion and debate around what is the role of people then in any of these industrial revolutions. I mean, if you look at the history of industry 1 and 2 and 3, all of them, in fact, in some way or the other, were driven by people. And with industry 4, somehow we were looking to see that technology was kind of getting the better of human beings. Now industry 5, kind of tries to reverse that perception, where we are going to bring in the people into the forefront of everything. Now industry 5 isn't an evolution of industry 4, nor is it an alternative paradigm. So it's not really another, if I may call it, revolution as the previous industrial revolutions, but it's kind of takes on the benefits, or takes on the results of industry 4. So it primarily, you know focuses on bringing back the human factor, so placing employees, placing human beings at the center of the entire production process. Now, according to this, so technology should be at the service of humans in a way. So, in fact, till Industry 4, we would be looking at what can humans bring in terms of new technologies. But now with Industry 5, we look at it the other way. What can technology do for humans? Right? And this is with the aim of moving towards a scenario of full machine human collaboration. So
Right.
in other words, industry 4 was based on interconnectivity between machines and IT systems, while industry 5 looks to combine the roles of humans and machines to complement each other's strengths.
Right. So I think up to industry 4, some of my research, I mean, while I was reading through this, was it was the focus was so much on scaling your operations that we got it all of the technology, robotic arms, whatnot, and which is important to, of course, to scale, right? But then I think now they say, okay, how can humans get into the decision making along with side by side with all of this technology that we brought in, and that's where,
Absolutely.
like in your post, you mentioned about the human machine collaboration, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where this would come in and say, okay, how does the human get involved in the decision making while the technology helps us scale and bring efficiency to our production, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the outcomes that we target with 5.0, right? So you mentioned, and we have the generative AI wave that's coming now, and how does that tie in with the outcomes for Industry 5.0 that companies would actually start seeing, right, in their uh, as a result, like in their KPIs or metrics. What would be these outcomes that would be affected?
Yeah. So with Industry 5, now what really happens is we are typically looking at three paradigms. So one is sustainability, the second is human centricity, and the third is around resilience, right? So now these three paradigms will become, in a way, if we look at Industry 5, part and parcel of any business model of, or let's say any evolving business model. Now in that aspect, of course, when we are looking at artificial intelligence, now there's so much that you can do with the data that you capture, right? So generative AI, and of course now we are, for we are looking at chat gpt, and who would have known that that AI would become so much democratized now, thanks to the likes of chat gpt that's happening. So even a layman today, even though he or she may not know what AI is, but he or she would know what chat gpt is.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, we're already seeing a rather a push towards, I would say, better adoption of technology, and that kind of supports the premise that we have with Industry 5. What can technology do for us, right? So if I'm looking at chat gpt now, which is personalized results, for example, to me, or any of my friends or colleagues, or family members, anything that they want to look for, it actually gets personalized to what they're searching for, right? And I think that's exactly where the strength of technology comes to helping humans understand their own, I would say, limitations and strengths. So again, with AI, and it's just one of the technologies that's supporting Industry 5. There would be so many others. For example, exoskeletons. So biosynthetics. You would have, of course, connected ecosystems like IoT, etc. Right. So AI is just one of the supporting technologies, but I would say perhaps one of the important ones, primarily because it would be really looking at making sure all the data that you capture to support your three paradigms that I mentioned, so resilience, etc., would play a big role in ensuring that these three paradigms become part and parcel of our evolving business models, which today is not really the case.
Right, right. So you would see, so just from a use case perspective, you would see um, more personalized solutions to a specific industry, specific, even within specific industry, specific line, right? An industry can have multiple different products, right?
Yeah,
That need have varying needs, and then you would basically have more technology targeted, personalized technology targeted towards building of specific
absolutely.
products, specific lines, specific functions. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges in adopting this, right? So we have a way of working, right? Industry 4.0 has been there has been everyone has adopted Industry 4.0 at different levels, right? Different waves. There are different level of maturity in adopting 4.0. Some are really ahead, some are not there yet. So when we go to 5.0, or when we talk about getting the human again back in, or making things centered around this human decision making, how do you think, what would be the challenges for the companies now to
Yeah,
come in?
yeah. So one of the most important challenges would definitely be the mindset shift, because so far all our, you know, all our efforts in any company, especially when we are looking at preparing a strategic vision or a roadmap or looking at business models, resilience has been there definitely because of business continuity. I mean, it's a going concern for any company, so the business continuity has to be there. So resilience automatically fits into the picture. Human centricity has primarily been around HR policies, right? And if we are looking at the role that humans play today, especially from understanding technology, we lack the skills that's needed. So I think the biggest challenge will be to upskill, and that's why there's already a lot of push, especially over the last couple of months and years now, to upskill people in digital technologies, right? So I think that's something that will be a key challenge, especially in core industries where digital may not be one of the capabilities that industries have, especially the traditional industries. Second, from a social dimension, again, the whole idea of accepting technology yet may not be there. I mean, and there when we look at the famous Moore's curve, when you look at the they call it the technology chasm. So you go from you go from the initial phase where you look at creating prototypes to being an early adopter to being a mass adopter in the end. The chasm, thanks to COVID, of course, has decreased to some extent. So the gap
Yeah,
that was there to go into mass adoption has decreased, but it's still there. So that would definitely be one of the inhibitors again, especially because now we are really talking of technology as it will apply to humans,
right.
right? So that would definitely be there. And third, I would say creating the circular economy, that's again something, it's been there in strategic papers, creating, making things more sustainable, reducing waste. All those things are there. There are a lot of efforts that are being put, but now with Industry 5, they will really come to the forefront of any company's strategic vision. So it's not only going to be for investor relations or some small work being done on sustainability, but it will really become part
Yeah.
and parcel of
Just
any
not a slide
company's.
it up in an investor deck.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. So just when we talk about challenges and bringing the human the human back into the decision making. Um, you mentioned upskilling, right? Do you see and there are thousands of courses like available to learn, but is there any specific technology or that would get more push, or would you suggest that, hey, this is a push that we should make in an organization when you're consulting with an organization?
Yeah, I think here the most important thing will be the ecosystem that we are in. So, for example, if you're speaking in terms of a company,
Hmm.
most of the time we look at technology as something what it's needed for me and my team. That's all. We don't. We may or may not understand the entire company's objectives. We may or may not understand what the company is looking for or the direction the company needs to take. So, business acumen would be a key enabling factor to understand what is it in that particular technology that could be useful for me, my team, my organization, and the company at large. So this whole picture is something that we still miss at many levels in any organization, big or small.
Right.
So that would definitely be there. The way of working as well. I mean, of course, now that we are looking more at agility, we're looking at more at resilience, for example, right? With COVID, for example, agility and resilience came to the
Yes.
forefront. I mean, if you had talked of these before COVID, they would again be in strategic documents. They would again be, okay, some team is working on agility, some team is maybe looking at business continuity, but never part and parcel of our work. Today, if we are talking to each other, it's because companies worldwide have adopted work from home methodologies, right? Have adopted collaborative communication tools and cloud, right? So even if we don't know what cloud is, we know what cloud is doing to us, right?
Yes.
Today, if you're talking, that's because of cloud. So I think this whole acceptance of technology as it should be for our benefit is gaining that it's creating that mindset shift, definitely. So I would say give it a few years, people will get more and more impacted by technology as it should be applied to them.
Yeah.
But also, on the other hand, they may or may not understand technology from an architect's perspective, let's say. Yeah? But overall, they would definitely understand what is IoT all about, at least something that they can relate to when they're doing their work. So that would definitely be something that will change. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the mindset shift is a big thing because when we talk to our customers currently, also like getting everyone over to cloud. Like there are certain very good set of customers who are very mature and understand, but then there are also a set of customers who would say, "Oh, we don't want anything to do with cloud," and for the right reason. Some of them actually have regulation concerns about the security, which is fair, and we have to meet them there. But then there are some concerns that it's purely education. Oh, will my data be safe? Yes, it will be
Yeah.
safe. So
Absolutely.
uh, educating them on the security aspects of it, educating them on uh, general. When you, like you said, architecture, like for an architect, it is pretty clear. Hey, this is not going to happen. It's encrypted. There's no way this will happen. But from a business perspective, from someone who is not been in technology, bringing them right there where an architect's thinking, I think will be absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about this whole 5.0 that's coming up, is because now you have to learn, you will have to
You
understand.
have to.
There is
Yes.
no, you cannot say that's machine's job and this is my job. It's your job together, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
um, um, yeah. So talking about the challenges, do you want to talk a little bit about the regulation and compliance and how will this play with the industry 5.0?
Absolutely. So, of course, I mean, one of the critical challenges with regulatory and compliance is they are different in different parts of the world. Right. So, if, even as simple as data compliance, for example, if you look at even countries within Europe, of course, we do have the GDPR compliance that we need to take care of. But then there are specific countries, I'm not going to name them, there are specific countries that are even more stringent about regulatory compliance, primarily because their labor unions are very particular about them. So definitely there's having a full consensus in terms of the methodologies that need to be adapted would vary. So it may not be that easy. Also, we know different regions in the world may look at regulatory compliance in a very different way. Some regions might be a little lax, some regions might be very, very particular. But overall, what you clearly see, and especially over the last 2 3 years, and I'm not speaking about the heavily regulated industries per se, like the likes of pharma, for example, or insurance. They are very regulated, especially pharma. That I'm seeing it in the last 3 years as well. Wow, it's amazing. But apart from that, if you look at the other industries that may or may not have been very stringently regulated, you do see gradually internal checks and balances being put into place, because now, for example, today, if I'm just at the start of this call, we advise the audience, if you're not okay with having this recorded, right, it's a simple thing that maybe a few years back we wouldn't have even asked the audience to do, but now we are doing it primarily because it's becoming part and parcel of everything that we are doing. So on one hand, definitely it's on a personal level that we need to adhere to our own best practices of regulatory compliance, security, and privacy. But also on the other hand, companies are also bringing in their own methodologies around it. So there are a lot of guidelines and toolkits being put into place, even for ChatGPT now, by the way. So that's happening. And then, of course, from a regulatory perspective, as and when they're up to speed, because sometimes they may lack or sometimes they're quite ahead. So it depends on where you are. But overall, I would say it's happening. It's a welcome sign, because now we are kind of getting standardized gradually across the spectrum in terms of regulatory compliance. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it will be something that it can't be one department's job. Like Industry 4.0,
No.
some said consolidated into one department's work. This seems like this is going to be multiple departments coming together and saying, okay, we need to push this boundary a little for in our own
Absolutely.
processes, in our own methods.
Absolutely. And there exactly in all this discussion, the common element is the human factor.
Yeah.
Right, everything that we are doing, we are no longer relying on machines to do it for us. It's okay, machines will do things for us when we advise them to, when we guide them to, or when we tell them to, but
Yeah.
in the end the decision making will fall on the human beings now,
Yeah.
right? And that's, I think, where industry 5, of course it's happening today, but with industry 5 that whole push will be even more pronounced. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It, it brings forward the need for process, because the moment you have human factor, you need processes. Then they also going to be. So it's basically taking the error, the human error out of the process, introducing machines where human error would be, but then also giving the guidance of human decision making and different
Absolutely.
considering different factors in.
Absolutely. So the repetitive tasks would be left best to the robots. Of now, of course, with Industry 5, we are speaking more in terms of cobots, right?
Yeah,
So machines and
I read that.
humans and machines will kind of coexist together. So none of them is going to replace the other. That was one of the fears of Industry 4, for example.
Yeah.
But now they're going to kind of coexist. So cobots will definitely play a role. But for the humans, indeed, the more creative tasks, the decision making, the design process, etc., will be back with the humans. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, cobots is a new word that I read. So I was preparing for um, this interview. But thank you so much for sharing all
Thanks,
this
man.
information. I think we can go to questions now. Um, so I think Sudha posted a question here. Human focus in Industry 4.0 was about people with focus on their engagement to create data to monetize in a data economy. How is this shifting in 5.0? Is the control going to be back to humans? What is the agency of humans in Industry 5.0?
Yeah, indeed, the control will definitely come back to the human factor. So Industry 5, if I recall the three paradigms. So of course, human centricity is one of them, and the control and so when we just give the example of cobots, for example, where humans, and I'm not looking at robots as only robots, but anything that's doing repetitive work for us, right?
Yeah.
Now, so far, it was all that I think that's also one reason why we used to call them smart systems, because they would do the work for us, right? In a way, they would take the decisions for us. Here, there's no way that we are going to let the decisions go completely by themselves, but of course we are the ones who will devise those decisions for us. So I think it's definitely a welcome move with Industry 5 gradually, that humans will come back to being the decision makers, come back to being the ones that would define a design, that would be doing the more creative task indeed. So that would definitely be a big shift compared to Industry 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Any other questions? Anyone wants to go off mute and ask a question? Please feel free.
If I may add to my previous question, um, the way the business model was set up, so I see, okay, collaborative robots is one where it is not just all humans in industry. But if you see the business model of how we are operating today with AI in the equation, we say, okay, we are going to make it human-centered, but it is all about collecting data about the human to understand the behavior of the user, to personalize the experience. So it looks like I'm at the center of it because the experience is personalized for me, but the business model is about collecting my data. So can you elaborate a bit more on this whole human agency, whether we are really good to get human agency back with Industry 5.0?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it will never be absolute that now we absolutely will have all the let's say control coming back to humans. But what will really happen is one of the strengths of Industry 5, or the evolution towards Industry 5, is we're going to play on each other's strengths. So the robots or the cobots, right, will play with our strengths, will utilize our strengths, so in terms of design, in terms of process, and we are in turn going to work with the strengths of our robots, for example, in terms of repetitive tasks. Now what happens with in all this ecosystem is when now when let's take a quick use case in terms of hyper personalization. Now, with any pharma company, especially the ones that are working on let's say immunotherapy, right? So those are areas where you would devise personalized medicines to for very specific people. So depending on their specific needs of any particular patient, you would have a completely different cocktail of drugs being created for that patient. So that's immunotherapy. So for example, in cancer, that's something that's being done these days quite a bit. Now imagine if there are almost 100,000 such patients. Can the company really work on having a separate assembly line for each of those patients, considering that the whole cocktail of drugs that needs to be created will be very different from one patient to the other? Perhaps not. That's where the human element will come in, where we need to figure out, okay, this cocktail of drug goes to patient A, this cocktail of drug goes to patient B. So that's the creative part, the design part. What the robots will be doing, or the cobots will be doing, is making sure the manufacturing of those drugs hyper personalized. So every drug is is made fit for purpose for one particular patient. So the robots will make sure that the drugs are customized to one particular patient, right? So I think there the coexistence of human capabilities and let's say robotic capabilities will play a big role. So I think that's where one of the key benefits of Industry 5 will be the hyper personalization that may or may not have been so much at the fore today. So I think there the business model will definitely be evolving towards hyper personalization. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Very interesting, the Ida shared something called as Society 5.0 from Japan. It's very interesting to see the commonalities that are, and this is, I mean, I'm seeing for the first time learning.
Yeah.
The great part about Weekly Wednesdays, we always learn something. Um, it's when you get a chance, please everyone look at it. Very interesting to see the commonalities between what we're talking about, Industry 5.0 and the Society 5.0.
Society 5.0 in Japan, yes, indeed.
Um, very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ida. Ida was our speaker last week, and she talked about the human. She talked about the evolution of AI, and again, there is the the centricity of UI and human element of And it was a very interesting talk that we had. Anyone else wants to share or ask questions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think just a quick remark. I think, well, I'm getting very positive and optimistic, Sourav, with your talk, because I think there's a counterpart to what is allowing Society 5 to be and to grow. That's cyber physical systems, which is basically. And when you look at that and read the papers and see how that is worked on, is that basically everything has been broken down into these levels of entities. And so people, machines, processes, systems, they're all being sort of taken apart and reassembled in very real time. So basically there's not a kind of thinking about in terms of humans and machines and processes and things. There's just a kind of thinking of at this level of entities. And you can read things like humans sort of are being referred to as sub-context systems or sort of things like that.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I understand that coming more from a military or kind of a very controlled notion of this being and coming together. But I think what I hear from you is that there's a much more fruitful and much more complementary relationship between machines and processes and humans. And that I think is great to hear. I think it's really good to hear that is how people are seeing that, and that's also how this then it's like you said, it's basically on the basis of this complementarity, the both strength of all the actors.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, that's great to hear. Thanks. In fact, indeed, of course, as with any evolution, there would always be a learning phase. Of course, now here as well, not everything is going to be very, very rosy. Of course, there would be phases where we would learn from each other. Even with IoT, I mean, you would know much more about IoT than me, but even with IoT, there has been a phase where initially it was a lot of hype, then the hype went down, but again, when we saw the real benefits that we could have on with IoT across the spectrum, across different industries, residential users, etc., then you again saw the whole adoption of IoT coming to the fore. So I think even with Industry 5, the most important challenge is it's no longer about technology. And I think that's because so far we have gotten used to seeing technology as an enabler. Of course, it will always be there, but now with Industry 5, we are again looking back at humans in the realm of technology. Of course, we are looking at how it can be used for societal benefits. So there we are looking at sustainability as well, and of course, resilience I think resilience has been the one factor that most companies have always had. So we don't need to talk about resilience too much, and thanks to COVID, that has always been very much in the limelight. But definitely the human centricity, I think, would be the most important factor, because with any digital transformation, technology is an enabler, but humans are the ones who are deciding which technology to use in which context, right? So it's great that humans are coming back into the limelight again. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yes, I'm very happy to hear that, because this is such an important moment, and there's so much dystopias out there, and there's so much control and so much horror stories and so much so there's so much negativity around these items, as if we will only be losing control or if there will only be loss. And I think I'm fully with you that there's a lot to be gained, and that we have to bring this message across, that Society 5.0 is very much like you paint it and like you see it. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Rob,
Absolutely.
Rob, we're so glad you were able to join us because you have actually created a bigger movement around IoT. So maybe, you know,
Yes,
if Sneha's okay with it, maybe you should tell people about IoT Day.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
Rob. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good.
Well, actually, it that sort of when I set up or started council was sort of in 2009. The next year, I realized we had to have some kind of a moment where we would try to look without being naive and with still remaining very critical, but to talk about the sense of having decision making based on real-time data streams, and we know they're all biased in themselves also, but at least it would give some layer to make decisions on in the best possible way that we could think of for people, for health, for the home, the smart home, for the city and the planet. And so I will always remain quite optimistic that that vision or that idea would come through. And so the idea was to set up this IoT Day to basically have people talking in this more positive sense. And again, not without being naive, because we know there's an obsessive compulsiveness in the system architectures that is also favoring this notion of control, and so that's in itself not bad, as long as it's not leading to having people scored on certain points and to get people a kind of passport based on all their actions that they have no control over what they're being sort of vetted on, sort of that these things but I see them as kind of logical ways that have to be explored, but they will collapse on and in themselves, because that's an untenable situation. And again, so yeah, I'm very happy to hear that this it's about this complementarity, and sort of very happy to hear that word. Yeah.
And where can people join and find out about all IoT Day if they're new to this?
Oh, let me see if I can paste it put it in the chat. I'll put the.
And you might want to mention that also, because some people are joining on the live stream. We only have a subset of our.
Next Wednesday is
So next Wednesday is International Women's Day. So we are going to have another event right here, called Women's Planning.
yes.
Rob actually added a link here called iotday.org for people who are watching on the live stream. That's April 9th. So it's events from around the world. So you can actually find out a local event or an online event. So watch that.
Yeah. The idea is to organize a small event. It can be a meeting, it can be a lunch, it can be a small panel. Sort of, it doesn't have to be anything big. It's just about creating conversations around this kind of vision of Internet of Things and Society 5.0. And then you can register them at the IoT Day site, and then we will highlight them and tweet them and put them on LinkedIn and make them known. So any type of event is extremely welcome. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I have been part of IoT Day for except for last year. I did attend the previous ones, and it was absolutely I learned a lot.
We will be back for IoT Day. We host as IoT Day Women with women speakers from around the globe, 9 a.m. in every possible time zone. for 24 hours. So we'll have a live stream.
That's amazing. It's really amazing.
It's a whole community that comes together. If you start doing something good, there's people who will come volunteer and contribute and make it their own and run with it. So it's so much fun. So, and Sneha, do you want to tell us about the International Women's Day, because that's next Wednesday, and we would have something going on here.
Sessions on Wednesday. That is the next Wednesday. We will have sessions on women's planning from different speakers, discussion. And
Neha, your voice is a little garbled. I cannot completely hear you.
oh,
Thank you, Suresh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, it's still breaking.
I'm having some issues with my so do you want to take over the next Wednesday announcement?
So we lost you for a minute.
So that you take over the next Wednesday announcement while
yes,
I
no,
fix
no problem, Sneha.
Thank you.
So next Wednesday here at Weekly Wednesday, same time, which is 8 a.m. here in California, 11 a.m. in East Coast, 17 hour in CET and Nigeria, is the same event. We are going to come together for the same 1 hour, but it's International Women's Day. So we do a smaller version of our IoT Day Women, and we call it Women's Planning. So basically, I'll be there. Susanna Raj is going to be there. A few more women are going to be here. And then we have a bunch of recorded women's plain videos that we are going to show you to teach you something, 2 minutes from brilliant women. They'll give you a taste of what to expect for IoT Day. So I have some research on gender equality that we presented at New Rips end of last year. So I'm hoping to bring that to do my own share of women's planning. So let's see. So that's International Women's Day next Wednesday here, March 8th. And then IoT Day, you should check iotday.org that Rob shared, which is a much bigger international movement, and you will find amazing events. I find like so many things happen in parallel. So I sign up for a bunch and then I try to go attend a few. And then I go back to many of these, which if I can get access to the recording and stuff. And we would be hosting the IoT Day Women. Again, we live stream. Everything we do is free and open and shared and recorded, and it sits on our YouTube. So if you miss us or you want to attend something else, you can come back and watch our thing. So I want to give it back to Sourav. We were talking about human centricity. I have a little bit of skepticism still about human agency, I would say, because it's all good when you think of Society 5.0 from the Japanese paper that Ida Helena shared, and the concept when we are talking about it as thought leaders, right? We want good for society, for humans, so we bring human centricity. But I believe unless it is a shift in business model, there is no corporate imperative to make this human centricity to be agency for humans. So help me understand that. Am I too much of a skeptic? Bring me to the center at least, Sourav.
No. In fact, if you recall our conversations today, so one of the things that I'm always trying to put is business models will need to evolve, right? Like human centricity or sustainability, they have been part of corporate jargon. They have been part of some teams here and there in any organization, but really making them come to the forefront of their day-to-day operations or their day-to-day business will be definitely will need a mindset shift. That's not going to happen overnight. That's going to be an evolution that needs to take place, and as we were discussing, sustainability and human centricity, they need to come out of in investor relations reports, right? They need to come out of the strategic documents. They need to be made more operational, and that will take time. We also need to have checks and balances, which today may or may not be there in many organizations, depending on how mature the company might be. So it will need to evolve. I think it's for the betterment of everyone, all the stakeholders involved, that it needs to evolve. It's just that at this stage we are not there yet, definitely. So I'm really one with you on that skepticism, definitely. But I'm optimistic. We will be there, like with everything else that has happened in terms of technology evolution. Initially there would always be skepticism, and for good reasons, but then as long as we understand the challenges, as long as we are true to those challenges, and we know what needs to be done, it will be there, it will come. So give us a few years. I think all of us would be quite happy after a few years, when we bring in the human centricity at the fore.
It's wonderful to see the optimism. So I have, as a technology futurist, I'm always looking at the latest in the hype curve. I kind of climb onto it and then I try to demystify it. That's kind of my digital journey, or like your DDT that you said in the beginning. So I have a secret optimism in there, but I like to demystify things and challenge them. So what do you think we can do? Like, for most of us who are watching this are associated with technology in some form, or early adopters. I see many of my students here, past speakers here from Sudan, from UK, Belgium. Um, it's good we are coming together as humans, right? At least we are talking about this, but we're still early adopters. So what do you say for, to people out there who are in industry, who are hearing about generative AI and creating middlewares with chatbots and stuff like that, right? So what can they do to get to this, people who are business people,
Yep.
who will create the business model shift? What is the starting point for them today to get us in the right direction of the optimistic path you're showing us?
Yeah, I think the first important thing would definitely be, sometimes we make the error of going, big bang right from the beginning, or trying to solve a lot of problems at the same time, or trying to look at very different things all at the same time. I think it will be good to have a very focused and concerted approach to this entire evolution, looking at, okay, even for a small thing, like even for a thing like sustainability, for example, there are so many different ways in which company or society will be sustainable. Which of those are the ones that are most critical and need to be looked at urgently, or looked at in the short term? So I think it would be good to look at the short, mid, and long terms for any of these initiatives, for any of these, let's say, supposed adoptions that we need to make, and then look at what are the key enablers or capabilities we need to have. So they can be technology related, they can be skill based. So we need to understand that metrics, what is it that we need to achieve in the short and midterm, because they would become the foundations for the long term goals, right? So I think and I think the best part is, now gradually we are getting to understand the need for skilling of our colleagues, of people across the board, especially around DDT, so digital data and technology. Now they may or may not need to be at a very high level of proficiency, but something where they can tie the capabilities of digital or data to their immediate business needs. I think if we understand that, I think that will be half the battle won, because then we can play a more significant role in making our business models more relevant for the times to come, because business models need to evolve, primarily because the entire ecosystem is evolving. So I would say start small, be more focused, understand your capabilities, understand where you stand today, skill yourselves if needed on things that are really important for you, and then learn, unskill yourself if needed, unlearn, and then learn again. So I think that would be interesting to see how it evolves.
Beautiful. So with that, I think that's be a good place for us to close. Hopefully, as we go on this journey, you will come back and we can have another round of how this is evolving and where the opportunities are. So Sneha has given me permission to close out because her mic is not working for some reason. So thank you, everybody. And we do this as a community, as a learning community every week. So there's a lot of brilliant people who are here in the chat that I'm seeing. So make sure you connect with each other, because, we are using these discussions as a starting point to get us to think, and to have this in a very global, diverse group of different kinds of backgrounds and from different parts of the world. I think we have people from different continents. We don't have anybody from Latin America, but we have people from Africa and Europe, mostly. And we don't have too many from Asia because of the timing of this, but yeah, it's a good group. So I hope you'll connect with each other. And thank you, Sneha, for bringing this good discussion. Thank you, Sourav, for getting us started to think in a very different way, because I think this Industry 5.0 has not yet become a buzz. And thank you, Rob, for sharing iotday.org. I've shared this live stream for those of you who are watching the live stream. I've shared this on LinkedIn and added my own comments as I was watching. As everybody knows, I have this compulsive need to share as I'm learning. So I've shared the questions and stuff that came from here. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody. And for those of you who come back and watch this, join us for a discussion. Join us maybe next week, or come back and watch the live stream. And next week, as we were talking, is International Women's Day. So we would be back here. I'm going to be joining Sneha with a few other brilliant women for what we call as women's planning. So I hope all of you who are here in the audience will join us back again. And we'll learn something from a brilliant set of women from around the globe. And women's planning is just like mansplaining, but real good, meaty content from experts who are going to talk about their area of work or passion to teach us something. And we are this technology learning community. So, you will have a lot of technology focused topics, but you would also have people who are just not talking technology. So we talk about human agency. I want to call on somebody to come and explain what is human agency, because before I met Rob, human agency was not a very native word in my vocabulary, I would say, in the technology industry. So it would be helpful. We had somebody who came and explained what is equity, how it is different from equality. So all that is needed when we are building a human-centered Industry 5.0, a digital transformation that is human-centric. It's important for us to have a broader vocabulary. In fact, our speaker, Ida Helena, who's a philosopher from Portugal, who was chatting on here, talking about the Society 5.0 from Japan. She was telling us how we have shifted the conversation, the choice of words or vocabulary to include tech words in common conversation by technology. So we would have agile development in software, and then we would say people have to be agile in companies. So there is a shift in the choice of words we use that actually changes society and how we are, moving forward. So it will be helpful for, everybody out there who's watching to come join us and hear some women's planning, contribute to that if you want something to say. So we welcome you. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.